Hi, I'm Sarah Bailey, and I am going to share with y'all something. If you want to change your life in about 10 minutes, this really is a video to watch. It's one of the biggest things that gets in our way, a big lie that we tell ourselves that really can get in the way of relationships, and not just romantic relationships, but relationships with friends or family members, co-workers, people that you're working together with in any situation. So this is a big one, and what happens is it's the I'm just gonna let it go idea. Something happens in your life and you say, you know what, it's not that big of a deal, I'm just gonna let it go. So I've talked with the woman that I work with, and she has agreed to let me share this story, and of course I've changed her name, but anyway, so my client Jane has I've been working with her for several months, and she has just recently taken on a project where she's a co-chair of this volunteer project. And so she kind of got roped into it. Her friend said they were in the group and they were going to, decide who's going to be the leaders and that sort of thing. Her friend says, oh, Jane and I'll do it. It'll be fun. Come on, Jane, it'll be great. And Jane says, you know what, I can, as long as we, plan it out and make I can make time for it, and it's something that I'm interested in. So yes, she says yes. And so, they're starting to kind of make their timeline and figure everything out, when things are going to happen, and things have to happen in a certain order so that the next thing can happen. And she's real organized and great at that. So she was like, I feel confident that with the time between now and when the event is, I feel like it's doable. It's not something that is not going to happen. So she says, okay, we'll do it. So she and her friend, Jane and her friend, split up what Jane's going to do, what her friend's going to do, the kind of timeline, because certain things are based on when the next person does. One person has to do this before the next person can do that thing. So it's kind of a chain reaction. So the first time we are meeting, since she's agreed to this, I ask her how things are going, and she says, things are good. It's just kind of bumpy start, but it's going to be fine. We've got it all laid out. And I said, what do you mean bumpy start? What happened? And she said that, Jane's friend she agreed to do this certain part of the task, and she did it, but she did it like at the total last minute. And so the way Jane operates is she's real type A. She knows when she's going to do something. She knows what she's doing at any moment of any day. And so she's like, it's just me being too picky, too structured, and it got done, so I'm just not going to worry about it. And I said, okay, well, that's something to think about, but just if you're good and you can let it go, then that's good. She's like, yep, I'm letting it go. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. It's just not a big deal. So that's the beginning of the biggest problem that people have, is when people say, you know what, I'm going to let it go. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So the next time we talked was a couple weeks later, and she was coming from a meeting. Jane was coming from a meeting with this woman that she's working with, and she was just so frustrated and really getting annoyed, and we agreed to this, and so she's really venting, and that's all right. I mean, sometimes you just have to get the energy out and let it go. And I was like, well, what about having a conversation with your friend? And she said, no, it's just because I'm like this and I like it a certain way. And I was like, well, is that likely to change between now and the completion of this project? She said, no, but I'm going to be more flexible. I'm just going to let it go. There she goes again. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. I'm not going to talk to her about it. I'm just going to let it go. So, all right, that is absolutely a choice. You can do that. It's something that, if you feel like you can do that, then do it. So another couple weeks go by, and Jane is at the end of her rope with her friend, and it's really causing a problem with not only how they're working together, but their friendship. And so she's really frustrated, because before, at least, her friend would get things done when they said they were going to be done, but now it's Halloween and Thanksgiving and all these other fall things going on, and she just missed a deadline. And so it kind of Jane had allotted a time to do something that she was waiting for results from her friend, and it didn't happen. So it kind of mixed up everything and delayed everything. So now she's really upset. And I said, okay, so Jane, what now? And she's like, it is what it is. I'm done. I was like, well, are you really done? Because what happened was the first time this happened, you said, you know what, I'm going to let it go. And okay, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to let it go. And the second time it happened, you were like, you know what? This is just how she is. She did it before. So number one, you didn't let it go because you remember, and you're saying she did it before. So that's not gone. It's still there in the back of your mind. So then it happened again. So when you think about it in terms of an artery or a vein, and your blood's flowing around, everything's going, and then this little piece of plaque comes and it sits down on the bottom of on the wall of the artery. And so, you know, the blood's still flowing. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to do anything about it because everything's going to be okay. It's not a big deal. The only time you even really think about it is when you pass by it again. Well, then this other little guy shows up and he sits down right next to the other plaque. So now you have two little pieces that still aren't that big of a deal, but they're there and nothing has been done about it. And so if you can think about that illustration, you know, it's not a big deal until one moment that it is a big deal. So all those little things kind of build up, because we tell ourselves this lie, I'm just going to let it go, but we don't let it go. It's still right there in the back of our mind. So when it happens again, it's, oh, there she goes again. It's just, you know, here she is. She's unreliable. And then, oh gosh, here I go. Is she even going to finish? So then you have all these negative, frustrating emotions around this because you didn't let it go. And so then instead of having this simple conversation like, hey, Jane saying to her friend, hey, you know, I've scheduled everything out so that we can keep this going without being overwhelmed. Let's see, is it, you know, do we need to readjust? Do we need to change some things? That 10-minute conversation in the very beginning when she saw those things that bothered her, instead of, you know, saying, she didn't say, oh, she's driving me crazy, but she could have come to her and said, hey, this could become a problem. Let's figure out, troubleshoot now. She didn't. And so that little conversation that may be a little uncomfortable in the beginning turns into this giant blowout because she was so mad that, you know, she had planned her whole week around this contingent on her friend getting something to her, and her friend didn't do it. So now she's furious, and she's mad at her friend, and she's frustrated with this organization, and she's done. So instead of having that small little conversation or actually letting it go, which she didn't do either, it turned into this giant thing that was a big deal. So, you know, oh, it's not a big deal, I'm going to let it go. You know, that little conversation that you have over here when it is small and easily fixed is way better and less difficult to have than this one over here that is giant and frustrated, and you are, you know, interfering with all the other things that I have going on. And, you know, so why are we waiting to have these small conversations when what we're waiting for ends up being this giant explosion that's way worse? Like I said, you know, this just came up with Jane in that volunteer situation, but I've had clients in corporate that have had issues with people, and they just say, forget it, I'm going to let it go, and then it keeps happening. Even things with your spouse or partner or children or friends, anything, it shows up everywhere. If you think about it, I imagine that you can come up with at least one or two times where you said, I'm just going to let it go, and then however long later there's this giant explosion that could have totally been avoided. So I hope this helps y'all, and it happens in my life, and I really feel like being aware of it and seeing when it happens makes that choice to have a little bit of a difficult conversation way easier, because the difference between this conversation and this conversation is so dramatically different that that's always going to be your choice. Always, if you have the choice of this little bit uncomfortable versus a giant blowout. So hope this helps. If you want to learn more about what I do, you can visit my website, Sarah Bailey Life Coach. I also have a Facebook page, Sarah Bailey Life Coach. You can email me or just check some things out on my page. And I hope y'all have a great day, and talk to you soon. Thanks.